lived 67 years, taught hundreds of students about American history, and witnessed more than my share of human tragedy. But nothing prepared me for that moment. A Doberman puppy, no bigger than my hand, was playing joyfully with a red ball in the morning sun. Then, in a blink, a stranger snatched that ball, sneered, and hurled it straight into the alligator pond. The little pup, innocent enough to believe the game was still going, leapt after it, and the splash of water felt like a knife cutting the breath right out of me. I stood frozen, knowing that unless a miracle came, I was about to watch a meaningless death unfold right before my eyes. That's how the story began. Yet before the nightmare cracked open, the morning in Cypress Hollow Park had been so calm, no one could have imagined it. I had moved to Florida after my wife Margaret passed away 3 years earlier. Boston was too cold for a heart already cut in half, so I sought the South, where sunlight and birdsong might soften the emptiness a little. Each morning I walked to the park, sat on the old wooden bench by the pond, opened a worn history book, or simply watched children kick a ball across the grass. That morning, a tiny creature changed my life. Just a month old, a glossy black Doberman pup with brown patches at its eyes and paws. People called it Pip, a name as small and fragile as the dog itself. Pip cared nothing for the wide world. It knew only one thing: that battered red ball, twice the size of its body, and the endless chase across the grass. I sat about 20 paces away, watching every stumble, every tumble, every time Pip rolled over and sprang back up, tail wagging like mad. I laughed out loud, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in years. That laugh echoed in my chest as if Margaret were still beside me, touching my hand and whispering, "See? There's still reason to smile." Florida sunlight poured across the pond, scattering shards of brilliance. A light breeze carried the swampy tang of water. On the grassy edge, a yellow warning sign stood tall, black letters stark against the paint. Alligators present. Keep away. A shiver passed through me. In all my years of teaching, I had once brought students here, always warning them never to toss anything into the pond. But on a peaceful morning like this, who would dwell on danger? I turned back from the sign to Pip. The little one was charging after the ball, ears flopping down, tumbling now and then, yet springing up again like a tiny musician who never lost the beat. That game was all it knew. And in that moment, it was all I knew, too. Then a shadow crossed the grass. A young man, maybe 19 or 20, in a black t-shirt and a cap pulled low. His steps weren't hurried, but his eyes were wrong, the eyes of someone eager to scratch the surface of a good day. Before I could rise, he stooped and plucked the ball from Pip's mouth. The pup looked up at him, thinking it was part of the game. Its tail wagged harder, legs trembling as it hopped around him. He smiled a twisted smile, sharp as a blade, and with a flick of his arm, the red ball traced a clean arc into the murky pond. The splash was small, sharp. I opened my mouth to shout, "Hey! Don't!" But the words barely formed before Pip leapt after it. It was believed the game was still alive. It had no idea that beneath the green water lurked shadows, jaws waiting. All it saw was the red ball. That image seared itself into my heart, a naive little pup, rushing headlong into death for the sake of a simple joy. And me, an old man rooted to the grass, legs chained in place. The sky stayed blue, birds kept singing, but for me, the world collapsed. The boys' laughter faded into the distance, leaving only a hollow silence. And in that silence, I knew a nightmare had just begun. I hadn't even drawn a breath before the red ball traced its deadly arc, plunging into the murky pond. The splash was sharp and short, but it struck my chest like a hammer blow. "No!" I shouted, my voice breaking, but it was already too late. Pip, caught up in the joy of the game, leapt after it like a tiny arrow. It knew nothing but the thrill of chasing the ball. Its tail wagged, its little legs kicked, and then it vanished beneath the sunlit water. The world froze. I stood rooted on the grass, heart pounding, ears ringing. The last image burned in my eyes was those drooping ears and that clear, trusting gaze. Then all of it swallowed whole. The stranger's laughter echoed faintly, dry and crooked, before fading behind the trees. I bolted to the edge of the pond, shouting until my voice tore. "Pip! Pip! Come up, little one." The water rippled. For a moment, I saw the red ball bobbing, drifting like some cruel mockery. Then, from the dark green depths, a snout rose, long, black, teeth gleaming white. I knew it instantly. An alligator. The swampy metallic stench rose thick in the air. I staggered half a step back, my legs shaking, and then, from the guard tower, a shout rang out. "Martin! Stay back!" It was Luis Alvarez, the park security officer. Only 28, solid build, eyes sharp as blades. A former Marine, now the protector of every acre of Cypress Hollow Park. I heard his boots pounding the path, saw him vault the iron fence as if it were knee-high. "Get back! I'm going in!" he yelled. Before I could even nod, Luis stripped off his jacket and dove. The crash of his body hitting the water exploded, foam spraying white. I stood frozen, fists clenched so tight my nails bit into my palms. I was helpless. All I could do was watch. The pond turned into a battlefield. Pip surfaced for a heartbeat, tiny head thrashing, legs flailing wildly. It whimpered, soft, weak, almost lost in the churn of the water. But I heard it. That thin cry sliced me open. Luis swam hard, left arm cutting the water, right hand swinging a steel rod he'd pulled from his belt. His voice roared across the pond. "Hey, get back!" But the gator wasn't stopping. It slid closer, 5 yards, then 4. Its yellow eyes gleamed like knives under the sun. "Faster!" I screamed, my voice trembling. Luis slapped the water, thrashing with the rod to throw waves. Pip still paddled toward the floating red ball, its little legs shaking. In its eyes, it was still only a game. My chest felt ready to burst. All my years of teaching history flashed back. Wars, senseless battles. And now, right in front of me, the life or death struggle of a creature so small, the world barely noticed. The gator surged forward, its speed chilling my spine. The gap to Pip shrank to mere feet. "Luis, save it, please," I cried, my voice cracking. He didn't answer. His eyes locked forward, body surging like a bullet. Water exploded, sunlight scattering in shards. In that instant, I realized what I was witnessing. A man fighting not just for a dog, but for the bare minimum of justice left in this world. The gator let out a low growl, its jaws yawning wide, teeth flashing in the broken light. Pip turned its head, eyes wide with terror, and cried out a scream that tore my heart in two. The world went silent. My chest clenched, and then Luis swung the rod, pouring every ounce of strength into a crushing blow across the gator's snout. Metal met bone with a sickening crack, rippling the water in violent waves. The beast recoiled, jerking its head aside. For one suspended moment, time itself stopped. Pip was still there, bobbing in the chaos, half submerged. But the danger was far from over. I knew then the real battle had only just begun. The pond erupted. After Luis's strike, the alligator let out a guttural roar, a sound so haunting it seemed to rise from the earth itself. Its tail whipped so hard that the water surged into waves, spraying onto the bank and soaking my pant legs. Pip was still floundering, head bobbing, eyes wide and clear but brimming with panic. I saw its mouth gape, struggling for air, but its tiny body was no match for the current. "Hold on to it, Luis. Hold on," I screamed until my throat burned raw. Luis shouted back, his voice sharp and commanding. "Hey, look at me." He swung the rod, slamming it into the water to make a thunderous splash, hoping to pull the monster's focus. But alligators don't scare so easily. Its ghastly yellow eyes never left Pip, primal instinct driving it to finish the hunt. In a single lunge, it surged forward. Its massive body cut across the surface like an arrow. Then, its jaws opened wide, sunlight flashing off its teeth, and clamped down on Pip. The crack of teeth snapping shut was sickening. Pip didn't even have time to cry out. Its little body went limp, head drooping, legs dangling. For one frozen instant, it looked like a broken doll, suspended between sky and water. I screamed, my voice tearing out of my chest. "No!" Blood rushed to my head. My heart felt like it would explode. Luis roared and hurled himself forward. No hesitation, no fear. He wasn't just a park officer anymore. In that moment, he became a warrior. Both hands gripped the steel rod. He swung down hard, not at the gator's stone-hard skull, but straight at its snout, the one vulnerable spot. The impact rang out with a horrifying crack. The beast convulsed, its whole body thrashing. For a fraction of a second, its jaws opened, a sliver of space, but enough. Luis jammed the rod sideways, twisting his wrist, forcing the mouth apart. Water exploded upward, the alligator hissing, growling deep in its throat. Pip slipped free, tumbling out of those teeth and splashing back into the water. Luis didn't pause. He reached, grabbed the tiny body, pulled it against his chest with one arm, while the other still wrestled the gator back. "Martin! Pull!" Luis shouted, his voice breaking. Jolted from my shock, I lunged to the bank, seizing the rescue rope tied around his waist. I hauled with everything I had, old shoulders screaming, bones grinding. But I didn't stop. Luis kicked backward, dragging Pip with him, fending off the thrashing tail. Water surged into columns around him, but inch by inch we gained ground. At last, he made the bank. I stumbled down, hands trembling as I took Pip from his arms. The pup was limp, soaked, eyes shut tight. No sound, no breath. "Oh God," I whispered. Luis gasped for air, blood trickling from his arm where the gator's scales had torn him. He pressed a hand to my shoulder, voice ragged. "Don't stop, sir. Don't stop. Try. There's still time." I laid Pip on the wet grass, my fingers trembling as I found the tiny chest. I pressed 1, 2, 3, 4, then bent to breathe into its mouth. Once, twice. Nothing. Tears fell into its soaked black fur, mixing with mud and streaks of blood at its side. I sobbed, whispering like a prayer. "No, not like this, Pip. You haven't even lived a full month. You can't give up now. You have to fight." I pressed again. Harder, faster, until my shoulders screamed. Then, sputtering, a tiny gag, faint but real. Its body jerked, and a stream of murky water spurted from its mouth. Its chest fluttered. My heart nearly burst from my ribs. I collapsed to my knees, clutching it close. Luis exhaled, his eyes glistening. "It's still here. It's still alive." In my arms, Pip was impossibly small, but that fragile, broken breath, that was proof enough that miracles still lived in this world. I held Pip in my arms, his body light as a soaked rag. His breaths came weak and broken, each one like a candle about to die. His black coat was streaked with mud and blood, 2 deep puncture wounds marking his tiny chest. "Martin, we have to move now," Luis barked, eyes bloodshot, his voice sharp with urgency. I nodded, unable to think of anything else. He ran to the park patrol truck, yanking the back door open. I climbed in, still clutching Pip against my chest, as if letting go would mean letting life slip away forever. Luis started the engine and floored it. Tires screeched on the wet pavement, the truck hurtling out of Cypress Hollow Park. Inside, I tried to keep up the rhythm of compressions. My fingers trembled as they pressed gently against Pip's tiny sternum. 1, 2, 3, 4. I counted aloud, begging time to stand still. Then I bent down, breathed into him, just enough to make his small chest flutter. "Come on, Pip. You can breathe. You haven't even had the chance to grow." Luis grabbed the radio, voice clipped and urgent. "This is Alvarez. Puppy attacked by an alligator. Severe chest trauma, possible punctured lung. En route to Gulfside Veterinary ER, ET. 8 minutes. Prep surgery now." I heard a rushed reply, but it faded under the pounding of my own heartbeat. The Florida streets ahead were jammed with traffic from a local festival. Cars crawled as though no one knew a life was slipping into darkness. "No, Luis, do something!" I nearly begged. He jerked the wheel, veering into the emergency lane, sirens wailing. People turned, moved aside. The sound of the horn tore open the silence, crushing my chest. Pip sagged limp again in my arms. I felt his breathing falter, thin as a thread about to snap. I broke down, shouting, no longer in control. "Don't go! Pip, hear me! Don't leave me! Don't leave me like Margaret did!" Tears spilled, falling onto his tiny forehead. Luis gripped the wheel tighter, his voice iron. "Keep pressing. We'll make it. I promise 8 minutes," but it felt like a lifetime. When we screeched into the Gulfside Veterinary ER lot, 2 vet techs were waiting with a small gurney. Dr. Evelyn Carter, silver hair loose around her face, eyes sharp as glass, rushed forward. "On the table now!" she barked. I followed, still clutching Pip. The ER blazed with white light that cut into my eyes. They pulled him from my arms, laying him on the cold steel table. My body swayed, as though my very soul had been torn out. Dr. Carter snapped on gloves, moving fast. 4 fluids, warming blanket, broad-spectrum antibiotics. "Rhea, prep the X-ray!" A tech sprinted off, tubes trailing as they hooked into Pip's frail leg. A fluid bag was hung, drops falling like the ticking of a clock counting down his life. I stood outside, gripping the glass door, sweat soaking down my spine. Dr. Carter looked up at me, her sharp eyes softening just a fraction. "Sir, he needs surgery immediately. His left lung may be punctured. If we don't go in now, he won't make it through the night." I pressed my palm against the glass, my voice hoarse. "Do everything you can. I don't care what it costs. I just need him to live." She gave a firm nod, then turned back. "Prep the OR." The gurney wheels clattered across the white floor, carrying Pip through double doors. Above them, the red light flicked on. Surgery in progress. It glowed like a sentence hanging over us. I sagged back against the wall, my legs trembling. Luis stood beside me, his arm still bleeding but forgotten. He laid a hand on my shoulder, his voice steady, low. "Martin, we got him this far. Now we trust them." I nodded, but my throat was locked tight. Only one phrase echoed in my mind, over and over like a prayer. "Please don't take him. Give him another chance. Take my breath if you must, but let him have his..." The red glow from the OR spilled into the hallway. I dropped onto a plastic chair, my hands clasped together, shaking. My heart hammered so violently it felt like it would shatter with every tick of the clock. Another battle had begun. Not on the pond, but inside that cold, sterile room where life and death wrestled for every second. The red surgery in progress light burned above me, like a suspended flame devouring each second. I sat frozen on the hard plastic chair, hands trembling, pressed together, lips moving with prayers I hadn't spoken in years. Beside me, Luis stood tall, blood still damp on his shoulder, his eyes locked on those double doors as if he were fighting inside too. Through the small glass pane, I saw the operating room blazing with light, shadows of people moving in urgent rhythm. Pip lay there, tiny as a toy on the cold steel table, wrapped in bandages, tubes snaking everywhere. My heart tightened. Dr. Evelyn Carter bent low, her voice sharp as a scalpel. "Heart slowing! Prepare epinephrine!" The tech, Rhea, moved fast, sliding the syringe into her hand. Carter's steady fingers plunged it into a vein no thicker than a thread in Pip's leg. On the monitor, the heart rhythm flickered, weak as a candle in the wind. Then, suddenly, a long, flat beep. A line stretched cold and straight across the screen. I froze. The world stopped. That sound pierced my chest like a blade of ice. I pounded the glass, screaming. "No! Pip, don't leave me! Don't leave me!" Luis gripped my shoulder, holding me upright, but I saw his eyes rim red. Inside, Carter didn't hesitate. "Chest compressions now," she barked. Her small, firm hands pressed down on Pip's chest, steady, relentless. Rhea held the airway, pumping oxygen in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Carter counted, sweat rolling down her forehead. No response. The flat line stayed. I bowed my head to the glass, sobbing. "Take my breath if you must. Just let it live. Give it the chance I couldn't save for Margaret." Then, a tiny jump. One beat. Carter paused a split second, then pressed again. "Come on, little one. Come back to us." The screen flickered again. A weak beat. Then another, stronger. The flat line trembled into ripples, then into a steady rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. Rhea gasped, eyes wet. "We've got rhythm back." I collapsed into the chair, tears streaming, laughter breaking from my throat. Luis bowed his head, whispering, "Thank God." Inside, Carter's voice stayed taut. "Stabilize fluids. Prep chest tube. I need to evacuate the air from the left lung or it'll collapse again." The scalpel flashed. She cut clean along Pip's side. A thin plastic tube slid in. A sharp hiss escaped, air venting freely. Pip's chest lifted, breath steadier. "Heart stable. Oxygen saturation rising," Rhea called out. I pressed my face to the glass, unable to blink. Pip lay still, but his tiny chest rose and fell, proof that he was still here with us. Carter stripped off her gloves and stepped into the hall, eyes weary but firm. "Mr. Hale, we pulled him back from death's mouth, but the next 48 hours are critical. Infection, respiratory failure, those are still real threats. His body I can fight for. His spirit, that's another battle." I nodded, my voice rough. "I'll be here. No matter what, I won't leave him." She clasped my hand briefly, then turned back inside. I looked at Luis. He was still trembling, his arm wrapped in a blood-soaked bandage. I laid my hand on his shoulder, whispering, "You gave him this chance. And you saved me too, from losing faith." He smiled faintly, worn but true. "We're not finished yet, Martin." Now it's his turn to fight. I turned back to the glass. Pip lay beneath a warm blanket, wires spread like a web around him, but his little chest rose and fell. A fragile miracle, but enough to make me believe. In my heart, a whisper echoed, not just mine, but as if from the whole world. Stay, Pip. Don't go. This life still needs you to remind us what kindness looks like. The first 2 days after surgery felt like centuries. I sat beside the recovery kennel, listening to the steady beeping of the monitor, each note slicing into my heart like a slow blade. Every breath Pip took was fragile, thin as a thread. I didn't dare look away, afraid that if I blinked, that tiny life would vanish. On the second night, a tropical storm struck without warning. Rain battered the windows. Thunder cracked the sky apart. Inside, Pip lay beneath the warming blanket when suddenly his body seized. His legs kicked wildly, his mouth letting out broken whimpers. I realized he was dreaming. The nightmare had dragged him back to the pond, to the alligator's jaws still etched in his flesh. I laid my hand gently on his back and whispered, "There's no water now. No monsters. Just me." He trembled, his body rigid. I didn't force him, only kept my hand steady, letting the warmth of my old heart flow into him. Slowly, his breathing eased. A sigh escaped, as if he had surfaced from beneath the water. I swallowed hard. In all my years teaching, I had seen students face fear, but never terror as primal as this. The next morning, Doctor Carter came by, eyes sunken from sleepless hours. "Mr. Hale, his body is mending, but his spirit—" She let the words trail off, her gaze falling on me as if passing the unfinished work into my hands. I decided to try something small. At a shop near the clinic, I bought a stuffed manatee, gray and soft. Back in the room, I opened the kennel and placed it beside Pip. He didn't respond right away, only curled tighter, a comma-shaped shadow. I sat still, waiting. Then his nose twitched. A hesitant breath, weak but real. Pip shifted, resting his chin on the toy's back. Not a cuddle, just a point of contact. But to me, it was the first choice he had made for himself since being thrown into that pond. My throat tightened, hands trembling. It was a beginning. That afternoon, I brought in some boiled, shredded chicken. I didn't feed him directly. I sat on the floor, setting a piece a few steps from his nose. I ate one first, chewing slowly, pretending to savor it, then placed another piece down. Time passed like melting ice. 10 minutes, 20. My legs went numb. Pip lay still, eyes dull. Then, a flicker. He lifted his head, wobbled one step, then another. He lowered his nose to the chicken. For a moment, I thought he'd turn away. But he didn't. He took it into his mouth, held it for a long while as if he'd forgotten what to do next. Finally, he swallowed. I turned my face aside, tears spilling, not wanting him to see me cry. To the world, it was only a puppy eating a scrap of meat. But to me, it was the greatest victory. He had chosen life. That evening, Luis came by. His arm was still wrapped in bandages, but his eyes were brighter. He sat beside the kennel, speaking softly to Pip. "Little warrior, you saved me. You made me believe that the right thing is still possible." As if in reply, Pip's tail gave the slightest wag, small but certain. Luis looked up at me, lips pressed tight, eyes shining. I nodded. No words were needed. That night I sat quietly by the kennel, telling Pip small stories about Boston winters, the church bells, the way Margaret once smiled in her green dress. I didn't know how much he could understand, but in that stark white room, my voice filled the silence, tying him to this world. And for the first time, when I stopped speaking, I heard his breathing steady, lighter, deeper. I looked at Pip. His eyes were still closed, but his face had eased, peaceful at last. In that moment, I knew. The battle wasn't over, but faith had taken root. A fragile seed, yes, but real, and I would guard it with everything I had left in this life. A week after surgery, Doctor. Carter removed the chest tube. Pip could breathe on his own now, though each breath still trembled like wind through a crack in the door. I was given permission to take him into the fenced lawn behind the clinic, a small garden of grass and sunlight, free of muddy water and monstrous growls. I carried Pip out and set him down. His little legs shook, hesitant, as if he had forgotten how to stand. I sat beside him, my palm ready to catch him if he fell. Luis was there too, his arms still bandaged, but his eyes alight with hope. From my pocket, I pulled out the red ball, washed clean, the tear stitched shut. Pip stared at it, eyes wide, ears pricking up. I lowered my voice, whispering, "You don't have to do anything. If you're afraid, we'll stop. But if you want, just try one step." I didn't throw it. I only rolled it gently across the grass, letting it stop a few feet away, glowing bright in the sun. The world seemed to hold its breath. Pip looked at the ball, then at me. In his eyes, for the first time, I saw more than fear. I saw a flicker of light as if he were asking, "Is it really safe?" I nodded, my eyes wet but steady. He wobbled forward, one step, then two. Reaching the ball, Pip lowered his head and touched it with his nose. It rocked slightly. Pip jerked back half a step. My heart stopped. Then he went forward again. This time, he pressed longer, then nudged the ball so it rolled a short way. I heard Luis exhale sharply and realized I was crying too. "Good boy," I whispered, voice shaking. Pip turned back to me, eyes brighter now, then suddenly batted the ball with both paws. It rolled farther. He stumbled after it, grabbed it clumsily, his tiny mouth barely able to hold it. But he did. He turned, stumbling back toward me, the ball tumbling beneath his muzzle. When he dropped it at my feet, I heard a soft thud, the most beautiful sound of my life. I scooped him into my arms, my voice breaking. "You've come back to life, Pip. No, now you deserve a new name. You are Chance, a second chance, not only for you, but for me too." Luis leaned down, his eyes glowing, hand brushing the pup's head. "Ambassador Chance has a nice ring to it. He'll carry hope for a lot of people." The next day, news of Chance spread through the community. People came by with toys, letters of thanks, and gifts of food. They said the story reminded them that kindness still lived, and that sometimes a small life could move the whole world. I brought Chance home to a little house the park council rented to me, right inside Cypress Hollow. Not a grand home, but it had a yard and windows that looked out at the pond, now guarded with strong fences and bright warning signs. Each morning I brewed coffee and sat in my wooden chair while Chance lay at my feet, still carrying his old stuffed manatee. But now he had a dozen other toys scattered around him. Sometimes he still flinched at the sound of rain or thunder, but whenever I placed my hand on his back, his breathing steadied. One afternoon, I looked out the window and saw Chance chasing the red ball across the grass, his legs clumsy but full of life. A short, clear bark rang out. I laughed, then choked up. I whispered to myself, "You've crossed the far shore of darkness. And because of you, I know I still have a heart left to love with." This story ends not only with the survival of a pup, but with a reminder for us all that even when the world has people cruel enough to throw life away, there will also be hands and hearts willing to dive into the darkness to reclaim it. And as I held Chance in my arms, watching him sleep, chest rising and falling steadily, I knew I hadn't just saved him. He had saved me from the emptiness of old age. I sat there, tears slipping down as I watched him breathe, and I thought, how many dogs out there are still waiting for a second chance like his? How many eyes stare out from the shadows, hoping for a hand to pull them back into life? Have you ever saved a dog? If you have, please share your story in the comments. Because every story told, every memory lived again, is another seed of love sown into this world. Let's not leave dogs abandoned, trembling in loneliness. They cannot speak, but they can feel. And I believe we, as long as there is warmth left in our hearts, can change that, starting with you. If this story has touched your heart today, please subscribe to the channel and join me and Chance in spreading the belief that no matter how small, every life deserves love, protection, and another chance to live. I'll see you in the next story, where tears turn into hope and hope into love.